All right, good. Wow, good morning again. It is now 8:57, and we will go back into open session from closed session. And we still have the same members present as before, all members present with the exception of Joe Tidwell, who will be here shortly. Um, Next item is consider actions, if any, regarding discussions in closed session. There are none. There's a potential for us to go back into closed session sometime today, but right now we have nothing. So no visitor comments or testimonials. So board workshop, team building. Dr. Price.
Kate, we have shared with you a tentative kind of agenda just to try to keep us moving along. Throughout this, if Joe needs to be here for the board roles and ethics, we can go to something else and move it around. We thought we'd start out with the budget update because it's just been honestly the weirdest year I've experienced. I've never seen so many promises that were made that were not fulfilled, and we do believe that there's going to be another called session probably in August, September, which again, if the focus is on education, they really don't understand the educational system, or how it's financed, because it's too late to do most anything if they do what they're talking about. But with that, we've been working all along in the background, basically on past information, trying to make sure that if things changed, we could pivot to it, but we had a budget in place based on pretty much House Bill 3 from the past. And I do think the team has done a super job of working in the background. I think you're going to be very happy with what we've come up with. I think the compensation's not as great as what we'd like the recommendation to be, but it's pretty good. I do hope that if something comes back up through this special session, that we can do some kind of pivot to give a retention bonus to our staff at Christmas. Also, one of the things that we'll dig through and with fund balance and with ESSER funds, even if they don't, maybe we can come up with some extra funds to do it, because as we all know, inflation rate, even if we give what we're recommending, is just going to be a small dent into what our folks are having to deal with. And we have seen lately San Antonio's come out with their recommendation. Northeast has come out with their recommendation. And the truth is, we don't compete with Kerrville, Bandera, those areas for teachers and staff. We compete with Northside in that area. They are our neighbors, and we've got to keep a close eye. And I suspect, since this is the first year of the new superintendent in Northside, most of the time when that happens, a pretty good sized raise comes in as that person comes in just to make a good splash. So we just have to keep that in mind as we move forward. With that, I will turn this over to Wes and to Elaine.
All right, let's talk about budget. We presented to Finance Committee last month on the budget. This is going to be a very similar presentation to what we presented to them, updated with a little information that or just some numbers that have changed since we've talked. I'm gonna talk a little more basic on Christy's behalf, since it's her first time to adopt a budget. So I'm going to say a few things that you already know, but at any point in time, whether you or anybody else has any questions, just chime in. And so let's talk about budget, or as I like to call them, reasonably fake numbers. Some of the key drivers in establishing the budget this year is of course property values, which right now we're estimated to go up 21% on a taxable basis from last year. That could, of course, change if the legislature makes a change different than what's been talked about so far. I did see one email yesterday where they used the appraisal cap curse word again, but We'll just keep monitoring and see what happens. But right now, the estimated increase is 21%. That's $2.3 billion. If the legislature adopts the full 16-cent proposal that's out there now, plus any other measures that could take us out of recapture, but we're likely to stay in it at this point in time. The other key driver is enrollment. We're using PASS's latest low projection for next year of 11,263, and ADA based on attendance last year of 93.25%. Just a reminder, the district came in at 93.47 at the end of 22-23. So that is a significant decrease from what the district did pre-COVID at 95%. Go ahead. Yes, sir.
I know there's been some question about the number and using that low enrollment, but just talking to folks, we are still selling houses, and kids are still moving in, and that 93% attendance rate is a very low number for us. I'm hoping one of the pushes that we're going to do is working with the principals about follow through and attendance, and to get our numbers back up where they need to be. So if we even get a 1% bump in that will make sure that covers that number for us, that enrollment number as we go through. So I feel good about it, and I think we will make it. It's really for us an extremely low growth, but we have researched it and we feel comfortable with it. November. And we're working with them now. They're going to come in and do their big one again for us as we get ready to do the boundaries for elementary 8. So we'll get a complete update. Usually that comes around November, in that time frame.
Absolutely. Okay, just when we adopt the budget, we're legally required to adopt 3 budgets: the general fund budget, the debt service fund budget, and the child nutrition fund budget. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Other funds like our special revenue funds, those budgets are determined by the grantors, and the capital projects fund budget was determined when the bond authorization was authorized by the public. So. It's a good question. All right. Okay, so let's talk about tax rate for just a second. This is a picture of the last 6 year or the last 5 years of property tax rates, including this past year's at 117. Under current law, we would get pushed down somewhere around 7.75 cents down to the not quite to $1.10, but almost there. If the 16-cent proposal, which I'm kind of using as the low gauge, as proposed by the House in special session, it would go down to 93 cents. But we have no idea, right? One of the items that we'll do on Monday is I think we're going to have a public hearing on the budget, and the state law requires us to publish a notice of budget and tax rate, even though we're not adopting a tax rate in June. So generally that notice that went out in the that was published in the Bernie Star on June the 4th, that rate is high on purpose. We'll republish that same notice in August or September when we actually adopt the tax rate. But I actually published it at like $1.11 something. That is nothing to pay too much attention to at this point in time. Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, let's talk about the debt service fund first. Last year, our 32.4 cent INS rate generated about a $34 million levy. With the estimated values, that would generate a little over a $39 million levy. That's a pretty tremendous increase. Right now, we have just a little over $21 million in principal and interest scheduled. We have a pretty low schedule. We did that on purpose to take advantage of defeasance opportunities, and with the remaining 17.2 million, we would apply that to our opportunity this year. Would be either the 2022 variable debt rate obligation that we issued in August, that's coming up for remarketing in December, or the remaining 2014 bond issue that is callable at any point in time. The best option right now looks like the 2022. If we applied 15 million of that defeasance towards the 2022s, that would generate about 25 million in interest savings at this point in time. So we've got a ways to go before we make a definite decision. We'll bring those resolutions to you in August or September when we set the tax rates. Yes. Are there any questions about the debt service fund and the budget associated with that? All right. No, ma'am. Yeah, we talked a lot with bond counsel in the course of Senate Bill 1814 while it was being debated, and thought that we had some pretty good strategies in place, but it was a concerning bill. All right, let's talk about the general fund. This is how we generally present at this point in time. Is just talking about the total available revenues and how we're going to be able to spend those. On Monday, Christy will present a high level budget that'll just have the revenues broken out by local, state, and federal, and then we'll have the expenditures by function. And at this point in time, we're just going to talk about the changes and not necessarily the totals. So that's what you'll see on Monday, and that's what you'll officially adopt. The board's required to adopt the budget at the functional level. So we have currently in our current amended budget, we have 101.7 million in revenues. Between the increase in property tax levy, and I just said additional local on purpose because I added a little bit of interest earnings into the budget. you know, this year I liked that we only budgeted 75,000 and earned $1 million, but it can get to a point that if we get more than 5% off, we get knocked on our school first rating on our revenue budget. So I made an adjustment there to I don't want to depend on interest earnings, but I don't want it to get off to a silly degree either, right? The overall increase in property taxes decreases our state aid to a certain amount, and the net of that is a $1.7 million decrease, which leaves us with available revenues of $108 million, which is $7.3 million higher than the previous year. Currently, in our current amended budget, we have $104.9 million. We have $900,000 in one-time costs that the board adopted in budget amendment number 1 in October. That this is one of the changes from when we met with the finance committee. The safety and security projects are about ready to go, but they're not going to make the June 30th cutoff for this fiscal year. So we're going to carry 600,000 of that into the next year. So we're going to pull. We recommend that we pull 300,000 in one-time costs out of the budget. Since the other projects have been taken care of at this point in time. There's no need to re-budget for those. Right now we've budgeted, I actually reduced, you'll see on Monday, the final amended budget, part of the final amended budget is a recommendation to reduce recapture by 200,000 to 8.8 million, and the current projection for 23-24 according to current law is 9.4 million. So that's a $600,000 increase. Just informationally, the latest estimate for the actual recapture that we'll pay is in the low sevens. It's going to depend a lot on what we collect in property taxes in June. But I think it would take an extraordinary month of collections to get up to the $8 million level. All right, that leaves our base expenditures at $105.2 million, and that leaves us $2.8 million for our priorities that were established as growth positions, compensation, and then budget initiative packages. Here are the administration's recommendations for that $2.8 million. We have 7 positions that were funded in ESSER last year that need to come over into the general fund to the tune of about $460,000. We have 18 FTEs, classifications, different stipends for growth to the tune of $1.2 million. We've presented a 2.5% and a 3% increase. The administration is recommending a 3% across the board increase for all positions at $2.25 million. The next 6 items are budget initiative packages that are remaining that the administration thought was fairly important to incorporate in the initial adopted budget. A couple of the ones that are a little bit unusual is the last one, the absorbed fine arts class fees, for $120,000 to eliminate fees that are being charged for basic classes.
That's our first step. Our first step is trying to address. We're working on the classroom fees first. And we're trying to start figure out our got it. Response. Ask for a fee. There is an actual process to go through that. It's not just for them. That's basically that. Gotta hold folks accountable. What we talked about before, about 2 years ago, I asked the best full year fund what we found. What was effective. Easier to go to the parents. It's easier to go to PTO or BEF than just spend our own money. Because every campus, for instance, Kendall is going to return to us over $50,000. And that's pretty typical of our elementary schools. And what we want them to do is, I don't want anybody to run out and just spend money to spend it, but I want them to understand there's a reason for the budget. We can't keep going to the pot over and over again, whether that pot is PTO or parents. And there's got to be a good reason for us to ask for X amount of money for whether it's fine arts or whether it's athletics. And so this is our first step to try to get that under control and get that back to where it needs to be. It's one of those genies that's been out of the bottle for so long that it's going to take a while to pull it back. We feel like this is the first initial step. And with the messaging being, if I'm an art teacher over at North and I've been asking for $30 a year, you better not be asking for $30 on top of what we're giving you. So we have to put systems in place to make sure that happens. Yeah. Yeah. So we'll make sure we pay for them all. The other things up there real quick, the mass screener is something we've been struggling with. iStation does a super job with reading, always has for years and years. We're trying to find something that's equivalent to that to help us screen our math students and immediately help them. And I think they've come up with a product that's similar to what iStation does, and that's this Move. It's something that we included teachers and administrators in the process of looking at what's best. Let's see, the expanded phonetics, we've done that in kindergarten, first, second, and we really do see a lot of progress. It's wonderful to see the cycles in education because that's what phonetics was a big thing a long time ago. Then it's back again, and it probably never should have left. And the teachers, it's really different when you walk into our classrooms now because they used to go into our classrooms in kindergarten, first, second, and see these random word walls, which are good, but now they're phonetic word walls, and it's something. It's a new good thing, and we're expanding that to third grade. And a good part about that too is phonetics is the big push in dyslexia. And remember, we talked about our jump in special ed numbers, and a lot of that's connected to early screening for dyslexia students. By doing and putting phonetics across the board, they're getting it not only in the pull out for dyslexia, but they're getting it in the classroom environment, be able to, everybody's getting it, so it's good. And then the Ag Barn expansion, that's just something that we've dedicated to trying to do and continue that growth. It was amazing how many students were able to participate, and there's a waiting list now to go to phase 2, and there's a phase 3, and really even a phase 4 in that Ag Barn. So there's plenty of room to grow. It's really been a neat process to see how we have worked with the Kendall County group and how they have come to trust us. So it's a great partnership as well. I think she told me when I met about 50. That's pretty good. Now what they're going to do is we did some makeshift pins last year, and our guys and girls in the welding classes at both places did a good job of taking and cutting up different pins that were already there. But and I'm learning a lot. There's certain pins that are better for pigs than for goats and then for lambs, and so we're trying to be more animal specific as we go through this and just build the program. I'm excited that we have 2 new ag teachers at Champion, and Champion was kind of dragging their feet about participation. It was probably about 70% Bernie students and 30% Champion. I'm hoping with the new ag teachers there that we get a big jump, and it's more of a 50-50 split this year. So it's a good. I think it's a good thing for our community too to see that effort, the partnership. It's everything from card scanners, just like on this door, going in and out. But I think it's a pain here. You can imagine at a campus level having to pull out a key to everything in these common areas. So there's a lot of expansion there. There's still changes in locks. You know, the best example is Fair Oaks. There were, I want to say, 7 different keys having to be used because there was no systematic way of updating locks. Henry's done a good job of putting that in place. There's some securing of some film for windows and camera replacement. I remember we did that initially about 4 years ago. The life of cameras, I mean, you know from just our own things, they get better. But we also had some areas that weren't covered, and really we probably need some more areas that we are finding that need to be better coverage as we go. What's neat is the kids know where the cameras aren't, and so they've got it better scouted out than what we do.
Yes. Yes, I've met with them. I've met with them once with the city. They haven't changed anything with respect to their budget at this point in time. I put in part of the increase is taken into account in the final amended budget, and part of it is here. And otherwise, there is a little room to accommodate that increase. But they're just along with the growth, they want to add a lot of staff and a lot of professional services to try to catch up. So we've voiced our concerns with that and to our board representatives. They're still doing 2022. Yep. Yes. Some of it would be a catch us up, and for the professional services that they're hiring to do commercial appraiser, that wouldn't be a year-to-year expense. But the largest part of it are additional staff that they'll just need to operate on an ongoing basis. You'll note that we had 2.8 available, and what administration is recommending is 4.3. One number is bigger than the other. What we are recommending is a $1.5 million deficit adopted budget. I would remind the board that last year we adopted a $1.8 million deficit budget, and then we increased that to $2.8 million. Where we're going to come in this year, you know, I updated with May numbers last week, and right now expenditures are projected based on May numbers. This will come in lower, but May numbers were projected to come in $5 million under budget, and revenues are projected to come in $2 million over budget. So we'll see how that plays out, but we could have a $2-3 million surplus instead of a deficit. That is a part of the reason why the administration is confident in recommending a deficit budget for 23-24. 9.4 is the estimate for 23-24. We will pay in the low 7s for the 22-23 year. And just as a reminder, you know, we keep that calculation in place. We'll actually put that liability on the books as of June 30th. We won't pay it until August, September. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Hmm. Yeah, well, we always are conservative on the low end on revenues. We're always conservative on the high end on expenditures, and historically the district has at least not spent 1% of that budget on the expenditure side. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The $600,000 safety and security was the biggest change there. Yes, to the tune of about $200,000. That is incorporated into the. That was one of the few bills for education that did pass. All right, all right. Any other questions about the general fund budget? Okay, that leaves us with our last fund, child nutrition. We're recommending at this point in time a balanced budget of $3.8 million. You have to adopt a balanced budget for child nutrition funds. And we've established a meals goal of 950,000. We did somewhere in the 920-30,000 this year. That's just accommodating the increase in students for an increase in meals. And just informationally, the final amended budget will include about a $500,000 amendment for child nutrition. It's a $500,000 in revenues, $500,000 in expenditures to ensure that child nutrition doesn't go over budget on the expenditure side. But they're still tracking for about a $270,000 surplus so far this year. All right. Any questions about the child nutrition fund? Okay. At this point in time, we'll turn it over to the star of the show so she can talk about compensation.
I'm going to be juggling several mics. That last slide, the food looked a lot better on our screen than it did on your screen up there. So I just wanted to comment that was no reflection of our actual food services. Compensation. This is always a great topic of discussion as budget time. As you know, we are currently carrying about 84% of our budget in salary and staff. So this is a big area of discussion. As usual, I bring to you all, and again, I'm working on a different screen. Thank you. The annual salary comparison, and this is going to be comparing us to all of the market group in ESC 20. I just want to kind of show you here what's important to note. This is current year data, so this is not going into next year with any of the proposed increases. I do want to share that Northside ISD just announced a 3%. They are also going to be giving one-time bonuses at a varying amounts between, I believe, $1,200 and $2,500 to different employee groups as part of this year's incentive. So they're at 3%. Of course, we know that San Antonio ISD has, and I say this knowing that this is being recorded, has gone over the cliff with an exorbitant increase proposal for their team this year. And Northside, I believe, is right at 3% as well. So as you're looking at this, the key things to look at is our teachers are paid on what's called a step scale. And so our compensation starting current year, this year, is at $52,250. That puts us right in line with our market group. But what that does not actually compare us to is the actual school districts that we compete with for staff. Northside, Northeast, those are going to be the comparisons I'd like to share with you now. But if you look at this from afar, from a state level, looking at all of Region 20, you would see that we are very competitive right all the way to the end. We got a little dip there at year 15. But let's bring it relative to home and look at, these are our competitive districts that we often either lose or recruit from in the Region 20 area. You can see that currently we are at the bottom of the list. 3 years ago, we were in 6th place. And so we are slowly slipping backwards, which is, you know, considering the impact that COVID has had on all of the school districts. And so we're seeing some weird things happen. What you're not seeing is incentives that have been given. So our starting pay doesn't necessarily reflect all of the other things that we've done for compensation over the past several years. But mm-hmm. It slipped us backwards. Yeah. So this will just kind of give you a more realistic picture of our competitors. So we move on to the next slide. This is the visual of, and the first slide I showed you kind of that 0, 5, 10, 15-year comparison. Remember that if we can keep teachers up to year 5, then that is considered a career teacher. They're going to stay in the industry. So we really target the years 5 to 15 to make sure that we're taking care of that group of teachers, because that is when they're most effective and they are most committed to the job. You can see that we have now slipped below at year 15. We used to be able to say, and that's okay, because if you stay with Bernie, we pay you well in the end, right? This trend that you're starting to see that we've now slipped beneath will catch up with us as our employee group ages towards these years of experience. And so just be cautious of that, but we will talk a little bit about some increases that may get us back in line, but we will have to continue to monitor this trend that we do not continue to go either flat planed or out here. Questions? Garrett? Sure. Yes, sir, you are. Yeah. And that's because we are unique here in Bernie, that we had, when I came on board 6 years ago, we had a very, we call them seasoned or tenured, but we have an older employee base here than most districts. Places that you're looking at, like Northside, Northeast, San Antonio ISD, they have a lot of 0 to 3 year teachers. So, yeah. Yeah. So don't be too caught up with that average salary, because it really depends on the experience level of the teachers in your district. Yes. Yeah. Sure. It's all, this is, so, right. So the first slide was, if we'll go back to that first one, this is all of Region 20. Okay. Bandera, Lytle,
for the longest, that one slide she showed you very important. The longest we were able to tell people, stick with us, stick for money, and here at the market. That's it. Here, we're able to pull off.
did they? Yeah. And their retention is gonna, it's a range, so different employee groups will get different amounts, but up to $2,500 for retention.
That's part of good and bad about give salary. That's
Mhm.
it easier for us to budget because we do 3% if doesn't go to TRS and doesn't helps us in that it doesn't go into that tax instead of I think $1,000 go to a rate also that just rest. So there's good and bad about it. So what you just mentioned, that's off of 3%.
Yep.
For their retention too.
Right, they did AirTag. Northside is using ESSER funds for it.
Well,
No,
everybody gets it like we do at Christmas.
One time, yeah.
That's, we can't call it, there's weird things to say, and so we're calling it, have to call it
Incentive, yeah.
incentive and for everyone. Now, one year what we did do was give everyone above 5 amount, everyone below 5 amount, and we got a lot of press.
Yeah.
Well,
We can't call them
You
bonuses.
can't call it bonus. Can't call anything bonus. So incentive, stipend, they're all sending them stuff.
I feel like last year also that we provided salary, they getting a certain amount back because we were giving you guys
But
half for insurance.
I'm about to share that
Okay.
slide. Great segue, Christy. We practiced. Yep.
This is still that first group.
The very first
the
group.
first group of everyone,
Mhm.
all the small
Yeah.
districts. So this really, I'd love to see this compared to market.
I can get that for y'all.
That would
Just what we're talking maybe that was largely based on rate, so we got $6. Put the perspective, Austin, which is 7.5. Some of these districts are flowing. Read the paper, farm, Western school. Well, we used our kids catch up. So one district does right children, another flush. That's why.
Okay.
That's why they're giving.
Yep. But yeah, they already are. Great question. Any other questions on any of this? So the key takeaway from this is with our the competition group in ESE 20, we have slipped behind. I do think that when we did the 1% a couple of years ago, that really it probably set a trajectory that we're going to have to work hard to keep up. The next slide I'd like to share with you is on our benefits, and one of the things I want to share before we get into all of this, and so what you're looking at is the 4 plan offerings that we offer through TRS Health. That's Active Care Primary, Active Care High Deductible, Active Care Primary Plus, and Active Care 2, which is no longer accepting enrollees into the program, and that's why you'll see at the end that there are no changes for those participants in that plan. We did see an increase this year in our employee-only premiums of $30. I want to make sure that you all are aware how TRS comes to determine our premiums. As of 2 years ago, they implemented a process that they set premiums by regions now. So we received $30 increase. Our neighbors, Wright and Comfort ISD, who are participants in Region 13, received a $90 increase in their premium. So there are some advantages to the model that TRS is currently using to set premiums. However, we did see an increase, and so that increase kind of carries across the board. As you may recall, several years ago, it's been, I think we're going into our 4th year, the board elected to differentiate the district contribution based on the premium, or the plan election of the employee. So we do contribute different amounts between the employee only to employee family. So I'm going to use the Active Care Primary as the example up at the top. Currently, right now, we are contributing $331 for employee only, and then it just progresses increasingly more as you select different plans there. This was a gesture that we made a few years ago to assist families in our district, and so I think that it was well received, and as you can see, even with the increase, the employees are still in a good place. You can go to our neighbors in Schertz-Cibolo, and they are paying over $100 in their employee contributions. And we'll have some more data for you available if you would like to see what other districts are paying. We did not break out any potential increase scenarios for district contribution. However, Mr. Senna has prepared some documents for us that I will be happy to share with you. I know that there's a lot to talk about as we are still facing a deficit, and so I don't want to make any recommendations at this point until we're a little better situation on what you all might want to do for increased scenarios. So let me share that information with you. If we do a 3% increase scenario, and you know, in years past, I bring like 4 or 5 scenarios to you, but with the current climate that we're in, we are going to make a strong recommendation for the 3%. To the side there, you'll see what the total package cost for each employee group will be. But in the middle, you'll see that teachers will receive as part of their step. And that's important for us to note that it is not in addition to the step. Our practice has always been that increase is part of the step, and we will adjust the steps on the teacher pay scale by that $1,740. So at a minimum, and I say that not lightly, at a minimum, they will receive $1,740. However, we have built in between years 5 and 15 steps so that there's not compression. So some of our teachers will actually receive slightly higher than that. But at a minimum, a 3% increase would give them each $1,740. I also just and it's based on the midpoint of 15-year salary. We use the 3% of a 15-year salary. Our scale really goes to 30 years, though we have employees now on 30. We've got, they keep retiring, but we lost one last year, but we do still have some that are over the 40-year mark. Yes. And again, Some of the years between 5 and 15 will see more than that. Not significantly more, but usually in the ballpark between, $75 all the way up to $200 difference. Exactly. Okay. And again, remember, 5 years ago we were at 44,000. I mean, or 6 years ago we were at 44,000. This is good work, but as you can see from those prior slides, we have to make sure that this is the priority before we start considering out any other options for either additional benefits or additional services to provide to our employees. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Yep. I would like to memorialize that statement. He's never positive. Mm-hmm.
They do what they're promised, $1,000. But they just one way or another. They check out good that compensation are practical long term. So we'll watch. Talk about don't feel bored. But we're ready.
We raised Sarah's salary.
Good. So, and that has been something I have been very proud of in this district is the commitment to treat all of our employee groups equitably. And one of the things that you'll see in some places is that they'll give, we're going to only raise some teachers, not all teachers. So if you teach English, math, and science, you get the raise. And with Bernie, we consistently say if it's a 3%, it's for all employee groups. Now, in hard times, that's when you really have to start making decisions. Do we continue that practice when things are really difficult? But we plan from a budgetary perspective to treat all employees the same. However, I was asked to provide a little bit of information, and I did not memorialize this on the screen, but I just want to verbally share. There were some questions about what if we did 3%, but then we decided maybe let's consider all auxiliary employees with an additional $2 per hour, which we did a couple of years ago. That was in response to extreme difficulty in getting new staff. I would like to say that it worked. It didn't. We are still facing significant staffing issues in all of our auxiliary services, custodians, grounds, maintenance, transportation, food service. So if we were to do a $2 an hour for the auxiliary group, it would be the irony would be it would be $838,000 just to do a $2 per hour increase for auxiliary. Okay. Of course, that's something if you wanted to consider to do something different, then, absolutely share your marching orders and I can bring that scenario to you, but that would give you an idea. I will continue to say, because we have been fair and equitable, we continue to address para pay. There's always a lot of feedback in the district about, oh, our paras don't get paid well. And the reality is they get paid very well. They're actually still considered above market. If you were to want to completely separate out and say, okay, we want to give paras a $2 an hour raise, $815,000. So you're looking at a $1.6 million if you were to do both of those employee groups to do just an hourly increase. Okay, yeah, great. So paras are going to be anybody either clerical or non-instructional aides. And so, I'm sorry, I said that wrong, instructional aides. So librarian aides, classroom aides, we have some one-on-one aides for our special needs students. Those are all of the types of people, plus all of the secretaries, the registrars, the receptionist. They are also in that group. Now, you could ask me, and I would be happy to put that together, what if we only did the classroom aides? Or what if we only did the registrars? If you need me to break it down even further. But right now, if you were to do $2 an hour for all of your hourly employees, instead of a 3%, you're looking at a $1.6 million just for them. And then I would be able to back out what it would look like for professionals to get 3% and teachers to get 3%. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. The current increase, no, sir, because what you're seeing there, the pay grade does not change. That's the midpoint increase. So that's what they're going to get per hour. So right now, we were talking $2 an hour. Right now, as it sits, the 3% increase would yield anybody in AU01 would get 48 cents an hour more. So for like auxiliary 1, it starts at $13.36 and then it goes all the way up to, and I can tell you that, I have it right here in front of me, $18.60. They are AU01s. Food service AU01s. The transportation bus aides AU01s. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then when you go over to your paras, the instructional aides for at-risk bilingual PE and inclusion resource, same range, $13.36 all the way up to $18.83. The PPO2, which is where most of our aides fall, those are the unit aides, life skills, behavior. That's $13.99 to $20.13. Correct. So these are 187-day employees. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a standard for our district. You work 10 months, we pay you 12. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct. Yes, sir. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Retention. Great. Please stop checking your phones. Just stop. 1740. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So the paras, they have 9 pay grades, and the highest pay grade in our paras would be a starting pay of $34.32 an hour to $47.40 hour. That's considered a very high level paraprofessional, and we don't have many. I think we have 2 in that pay grade, but that's the range. So it goes all the way from 1336 all the way up to 4740 for paraprofessionals. For auxiliary, it goes from 1336 all the way up to, my apologies, got lost there, 3507 an hour. Our bus drivers starting $16 an hour all the way up to $20.50 an hour. And just for your awareness, our average bus driver pay is about $21 an hour. Very few people come to us with no experience in that capacity. Mm-hmm. Because remember, when we set this, this is what we use to start people coming into the district. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've got some experienced drivers on there. Mm-hmm. No. Yeah, so it's not just about a staffing issue. Part of the issue that we're facing in our district is that we are going to have to start considering the routes. We have been very generous in our district to continue routes even within the 2-mile zone. And we also continue to provide services that we were not necessarily compensated for, so some door-to-door pickups and things like that. So those are from a bigger perspective, there's a lot to consider in there. The fact that drivers are becoming less and less available, there's, at this point, nobody has found a strategy to overcome that. We've recently talked to contract services about, hey, can you get us bus drivers? There's not even a commitment here in Texas that they could do that for us. So these big contractor companies are still looking for, drivers. One of the things I am going to personally be working with transportation this year is getting our driver training program better established, or actually establishing a solid program. I've seen this work in a prior school district, and so creating a pool of drivers in our district. We have been very resourceful here that we call on teachers, coaches to drive for us, but when we do, we're essentially paying them $50 an hour to drive a route. But if it means canceling a route or consolidating a route, then we'd rather pay the $50 an hour to get the kids where they need to go on time. So we continue to look at that. I can tell you this, we literally last year gave increases of that $2 an hour, and I literally had people wait for their first check, and then they resigned anyways. So it's not proving helpful to us to just give more money, because they're going somewhere else either for more money or not driving at all. So, okay. It is. Okay. If you guys figure it out, let us know, because we went in on that gig. I just threw this up here to just give you a ballpark of what it would look like if we did a mid-year incentive. Again, this is where you can be a lot more flexible about, hey, we're not going to do, professionals and auxiliary at a certain amount or teachers at a certain amount. I just threw this up there because of what I've been listening to on the streets of what other districts are doing. It does appear that most of our competitors, competitor group in Region 20, are going to do increases and incentive. Many don't have that set yet, but that is for whatever reason, that is the compensation strategy being used across the board. So they're going to do the increase with a one-time incentive. Again, we have no formal recommendation for an incentive, but I wanted you to have a visual of what that might look like. Questions? Right. We could. What we have done here, our practice has been, is that when we bring forward the budget, we write the compensation plan that you will approve any incentive for that year, so we don't have to come back. We may not know the amount right then and there, but we approve that we're going to do an incentive. We can wait. We can wait till the legislation decides to do something amazing. This is not anything that we are recommending in this immediate moment. I just wanted you to have some information of what it might look like. And again, I can tweak this and vary it to however you might please. Just be aware, incentives are very funny in a school district. We receive more complaints than we do thank you when this happens, because once you take taxes out of some of this, then there's nominal. And I think one year we literally had people tearing up checks in front of us as we distributed them. And it was very disheartening, because it's a goodwill gesture from you all, but when they're hearing that other districts are getting it, there's an expectation. And so I just wanted you to see this. Again, any direction, Mr. President, that you would like to give, I will be happy to go back to the table for any increase scenario, benefits, and or incentives. Okay. Yes, sir.
So let me ask it this way. The 3% increase overall budget in deficit, or increase in our budget, was 4.357 million. If I just calculated with Northside coming out at 3, what if we did 3.25?
Okay.
Or something that would get above that percentage just a little bit. I think it's like $187,000 more or something like that. It's a pretty small amount. Is there a benefit from you from a recruiting? Is there a benefit for the district in doing something like that, or
Absolutely, there is. Just on presence, it's going to be we'll be able to say it's bragging rights, right, for this year. From a recruiting perspective, we're already behind the curve. The majority of my positions are already filled, so it's really going to be the morale booster for current staff. It's a retention. For the teachers. Okay. So that, again, you tell me what you want. I can work up all the scenarios for you. Mm-hmm. Correct.
remember.
It was 6%.
It really brought our. That was darn good.
Mhm.
So that's something. That's something. So I prefer paying more than this because 40 bucks really helps. Go back. That's part of my only point is that something because we have 7 lose weight. That's so talk about quarter that's fine. But
Right, and that would be about a $40,000 investment from us to be able to address that, at least that group for benefits. Okay. $70 employees, yes. So, oh, I'm sorry.
What I did was I took number of employees what current actual cost, what actual no and primary well, they're getting so all right. But when family were out, so multiplied by 50, at that cost $100. But they would see that out of the system. We say plus, and if we adjust.
So to simplify it, for just a single family, employee with a family, they have each month, it's $118 more a month. If you did that per year, that's going to be an increase for them for $1,416. So what Rich is proposing is that the district absorb that $1,416 in part. In part. Correct. Mhm. Mhm. Opt for that plan.
I just, the way I look at a lot of employees for their kids, it's really just about killing the out or for their spouse.
Mhm. Right. So 75, was it about 75,000? Yeah.
But that every now, yeah.
Mhm. Right. Mhm. If you give me a limit, then I can just bring forward several proposals that'll have that. Me too. $75 will attend to every employee group. Okay, thank you. Thank you. And okay, so just for clarification, because I'll start my work immediately, I am going to bring you a increase scenario that will give us a minimum of 2,000 for all of our people on the teacher, nurse, librarian step, and then 3% or at least 3.25 for everybody else. Is that correct? Or did you want 3 for everybody else and just the 2,000 for the? Okay. Yeah, 3.25, slightly above. Yeah, for everybody. Okay, I can do that. I'll have that prepared for you. Our next steps, obviously, is on Monday. We will be adopting a budget, so it's a very quick turnaround. This is a weird year because normally we've had 6 of these meetings, and we did not do that this year. But July, we should expect to receive our certified local values. August, well, you know. Okay. Well, I'm trying to be nice. August, TEA's compressed tax rates are ready to go. September, we'll have our hearing and adoption. And October, this is after the legislature come through and they're going to be a huge party and we'll bring you an awesome budget amendment. If I had a crystal ball, but I don't. All right.
I think this was a really good discussion. I think all right, I want to try to get us back a little bit better on time. Again, I apologize, we're running behind. So next item is board roles, code of ethics, and then operating procedures. So I think within the package, Melanie provided for us the code of ethics and then our board operating procedures. Christy, for your benefit, each time or each year, actually, whether we have a change in trustees or we do not have a change in trustees. The board has traditionally adopted and signed at our first meeting after the reorganization of the board, the code of ethics. So that is in here, updated with your name, Christy. And then our board operating procedures are in here, and the board operating procedures really kind of talk about the roles and responsibilities of the board. Both of these documents are on the district's website. These are available to the public. And so in light of this came to mind, and I'm going to kind of lead this conversation this way. So at our last board meeting, we were presented with basically a resolution from the Moms for Liberty, I believe is what it was, to sign a resolution. And they implored us to individually sign it, but if you read the resolution, it was all about what the board's decision was in signing that. And we can't vote on something that we don't have on the agenda. We can't discuss something until it comes up on an agenda. And much less if four of us had signed it, we would have basically created a quorum that we can't do. So this, I think we've got 45 minutes. I hope we don't take that long. What I'd like to do, I know Garrett, you had some passion for coming up with a different proclamation. And so we had to be very careful, and you'd sent it to me and I said, I got to stop because I know you said that Jessica was involved and we can't have that quorum. And so we need to make sure that outside of the boardroom, no more than 3 people do anything together so that we don't create a walking quorum. And that's very important from a law standpoint. So we basically put a halt to that when you sent it to me, saying let's talk about it at the workshop. We've got an agenda item that says board roles, responsibilities, code of conduct, all those kinds of things. I kind of want to let maybe you talk about your desire to do that. Is there, and kind of the basis behind it, and then maybe we can come up with a consensus to either say yes, say no, or does what we already do accomplish that, and kind of go from there. Does that sound okay? Oh, hold on, Rich.
Mr. President, before we go to that, I think that's a great idea. I hope that we all agree that this code of ethics is really, really outstanding. And if I remember correctly, at previous board meetings, we've read it aloud. And I think it would be good to read it aloud again, because I'm sure we'll all approve it, sign it, and it's a great thing to do. So if that's okay.
Right now, on the agenda for Monday, we have it as an action item. That we're operating.
Okay.
So that way it's easier to talk about.
Yeah, thanks, Rich. I'm glad you said that. So we have done that in the past. We've each board member, there's 6 sections, but I think 6 of the 7 have taken a section and just read those aloud. Then we pass the code of ethics around, and each of us signs that code of ethics. The board operating procedures, I did not go through these this time ahead of time. I think it was last year we had a small committee that was put together and really modified the board operating procedures to match how we were operating, not change the board to operate under the procedures that were there. So they were really more, but yeah, Jessica, you kind of led that for us, I think. So it really is a representation of what our roles and responsibilities are and that kind of stuff. So probably between now and Monday, we need to all take a look at the board operating procedures. That's a more comprehensive document about roles and responsibilities. But I think probably the bigger discussion today is the code of ethics, and then any other proclamations or anything else that we do or decide not to do.
On section 3, we can discuss later. Only thought that it came to my mind that probably needed to be put on here as we have visitor comments. There's this assumption that visitors can give their minutes to the next speaker if they they don't, finish what they're saying, and I think it needs to be written out clearly that we do not, that you can't defer your minutes to another speaker. I don't know if it said that on here last year or not. Yeah, they
Picked up, they haven't tried it, but got picked up.
I've heard a
Yeah. Yeah, so I don't know. It'd be good if everybody could see this, but basically the origination of my thought on this was we had this, proclamation put in front of us, and I don't know what you guys think about it, but I hate for us to get in the habit of like signing something that somebody sticks in front of us. I don't think that's a good precedent to set, for a lot of reasons, right? So what I did is, but there was some stuff in there, and in light of some of the things that have happened recently, I've had a lot of feedback. I don't know where you guys are at, but I've had a lot of feedback from parents, not from the people we would say are, kind of in the minority that are very more vocal, but just people that are kind of the 90% that are pro-district, very common sense, but they're concerned, and kind of looking for some communication. And so I put together a document that sort of goes way past what I think that other document did, incorporates a lot of different things, kind of puts everybody in their lanes as far as, parental roles, teachers, kids, community, business leaders, everybody in there, just to kind of, maybe help the situation, hopefully, rather than hurt it. So that was kind of the thought behind that was it's not something that would be geared towards, like I say, the very vocal minority, but it's the silent majority that doesn't say a whole lot, and they're concerned, and they're, just wanting a little feedback. So, I don't know is there a way we can all look at it, or if that's the appropriate, I don't know.
I didn't even open it. I couldn't because I wanted to make sure we didn't have a forum. So I think.
Yeah, do you mind making copies for everybody? Is that okay? Sure. I think so. Well, it's yeah, it'd be easier if we had it, but yeah, to an extent, it's the document that was put in front of us was about parental rights, basically, right? Which I think a lot of the stuff in there was real good, but it was, it was kind of a black and white document and wasn't really, and like I say, I don't want us just signing stuff like that, just for legal purposes, and we don't know where it's coming from and all that. But it was, I thought in an overarching sense, there was some good stuff in there that people in the community would appreciate.
It's more a resolution, I think, the way I read it, similar to what other municipalities do, take a resolution, almost like a pledge, is how I interpret it.
Let me come up with a different suggestion here. So this is the first time that the board has met since that was presented to us. I will tell you that my personal opinion is I'm not a fan of approving resolutions. And I'll say that the last time that this board approved a resolution that was presented to us, it backfired on us. We were requested by the Kendall County Commissioners Court to pass a resolution to support them in having an open hearing regarding a quarry that was being proposed out in Bergheim. And it was to support them in having an open hearing, and we approved that. And the next day, the news all says Bernie ISD passes a resolution in opposition of the quarry, which is not what we did. And so, Tommy, it goes back to what you just said, or Price, what you just said. Words to one aren't necessarily words to the other. So my leaning is absolutely to do nothing on a resolution, specifically as was presented. Garrett, I think your basis is we're not going to approve something somebody gives us, because we don't just do that, but is there some meat there that maybe there's something we can do that would not just address this concern in the district or this topic in the district, but maybe do some other topics in the district? Is that a right way to say that?
Possibly. Let me interject a little bit. Garrett spoke to me, oh gosh, a month ago or more, after that mock resolution was given, which looks like it's a boilerplate, maybe written out of Washington, D.C. Who knows where. And I was president, and I said, yeah, if you feel passionate about it, write it up. And he calls me up the next day, and I didn't see it, but he said, I was up till 2 o'clock in the morning. He was going away for his family for the weekend. And I forwarded it to him because I had worked on independently all the things that our district does of a wholesome nature that develops character and integrity. And you look at the pillars of our district: honesty, integrity, teamwork, compassion, perseverance, and all the things we do as a school district to promote that. And it's an impressive list. And I'm like, I'm not sure how many people in the community know this, because I will tell you, over the past few months, when various things came up of a controversial nature, I had almost 20 phone calls, texts, or emails from people that have always been supporters of Bernie ISD, but they were concerned about what they were reading. So they were looking for reassurance. And I provided that to them, and I shared with them a lot of the wholesome things we're doing. They said, well, we didn't know all that. I said, well, now you do. And so I think it's important. So I sent that over to him, and I also advised Carlin. I said, no, I advised Garrett. You're Carlin. I advised him. I said, Jessica is an awesome editor. When Garrett and I wrote up that 3-part series on school taxes and school finance, I sent it over to Jessica, and she did a phenomenal job editing it. And she's good at it. That's what she does for a living. So that's just a little bit of background.
Say something about the document presented. I think one of the things when a resolution was left, my curiosity was more, I didn't understand the funding of the group, or if it was a nonprofit or volunteer organization, just about resolutions in the future. And I think without having that type of context of funding or the operations of any resolution that is presented to us from people with really good intentions, that's a part that made me a little nervous about signing any documents, even as a board where we need to do things collectively. Those will always be my questions in the future, just not understanding source and funding and just any type of resolution, if it's a governing body, whether volunteer or not, what are their rules of engagement. So that's where I was with when that document was presented.
Well, and to Dr. Price's comment on how teachers perceive these things. One purpose in having just crafting an original document where we can do anything we want and say what we want to say in there. The intent would be to take any words out and things. I mean, I don't know that you can completely sterilize it where the teachers, know exactly what you mean. You'd have to write it really well. And it still may not even work, but that's a big concern. We don't want to do anything. And that was part of this was how do we do something where we show support for parents' rights, but at the same time support our teachers? That was really the kind of one of the prime things is take this document, say there's some good stuff in here. Here's, we support parental, be proactive, but be very clear to the community and specific parents within the community that we expect you to treat the teachers well and with respect, and that, you have, obviously God-given rights to parent your children, but teachers have rights too, to have respect and that sort of thing, so that's the sort of thing that I hope that if we did do anything with it, that we could all kind of craft it in a way, because right now it's a rough draft, right? But we could craft it in a way that would be very pro-teacher as well, so.
I don't think your teachers. It's not gonna matter what y'all. Our teachers really.
Awesome. Sorry about that. That was loud. All right. So we're going to talk about code of conduct and handbook briefly and touch on club's handbook, just like Dr. Price just talked about. So we review the student code of conduct each year. One of the things we do is we check and make sure that it's compliant, that it aligns with board policy. We also look to see if there are any legislative changes that are going to impact the student code of conduct. And so not a whole lot of change, really no real legislative changes are currently on the horizon for the code of conduct. We're in good shape with compliance. One of the other things we do is we get feedback from users. We talk to all the campus principals who administer and enforce the student code of conduct. We did focus groups with assistant principals. So there were a few things that came up with relation to safety and security. One of them was about hats and hoodies. We've done a great job with our P3 system. We did a good job communicating that out. We get a lot of response from students and parents, anonymous alerts and tips. That has increased our use of our investigative skill set amongst our administrators. And so we spend a little more time on video trying to track things down. And so one of the things they mentioned is that when students have hoodies on and hats on, it can become difficult from a safety and security standpoint to identify our students. We also want to be able to readily identify our students in the hallways and make sure that they are in fact students. So the recommended tweak here to the dress code is to tell students, hey, you can have a hoodie, you can have a hat, but you can't have it on school grounds during the school day. We feel like we can enforce that. We feel like it'll give us the opportunity to identify our kids. And then when we have issues where we have to go back and find cameras and things like that, hopefully they're not wearing their hoodie. If they are, we also have an additional student code of conduct infraction that we can use to talk to the student about. So, yes, anywhere on school property, yes, sir. Because we have cameras in the exterior of our buildings as well. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Correct. It's a very popular item, so we don't want to say, hey, you can't wear a hoodie, because that's just untenable. People have already bought clothes for schools. Yeah. Within reason, right? There's some reasonable limits to that. Like you're going to have athletes that are going to wear track and field gear that have hoodies on, and baseball kids that are going to wear caps, right? So we'll apply some reasonable enforcement to the rule. Yeah. Yeah. And all of our dress code technically is applicable anywhere on school grounds. All right, we don't delineate that in the written dress code. It just kind of says, hey, when you're on when you're on school property, this is our dress code, right? But you're right, we don't enforce a lot of our dress code until you come into our building, where the people that enforce the code actually are, right? We're not going to have people out in the parking lots checking for dress code. But we'll have people at the choke points like we do at the entry into the building when we're checking for student IDs, looking at dress code. We'll have teachers in the classroom looking at dress code. The only really exterior checkpoint for us on this particular dress code issue will be the exterior camera. That if we're looking for a kiddo and they've got their hood on for some reason, then we can ask some additional questions, especially if it's 85 degrees outside and we want to know why they had a hoodie on when they're walking by the camera. So there'll be a communication piece from us to the campus principals. These are the expectations and communications we want you to have with your staff, that they'll communicate to their staff at the beginning of the year before students come on campus. And then every year we teach expectations to students at the beginning of the year as part of onboarding the kids into our campuses. And so they'll teach the expectations to students. We'll provide a short period of grace while we work through this with the students in the first couple of weeks of school. And then we'll consistently continue to do dress code checks, ID checks, and follow up with students to make sure that they're in compliance. Dr. Price is correct. The best way to do that is to address it at the very beginning of the year when we teach our expectations, do a really good job with the communication piece, and then the follow up and the progress monitoring. And we tend to get pretty good compliance. Sometimes we have to do maybe a 9-week reset or a kind of a quick reset mid-year, but we have systems in place that do that as well. Yeah, the heavier lift for us, definitely, there's a few minor tweaks to the actual code of conduct. The heavier lift for us next year is the consistent enforcement of the code. Yes, sir. No, we don't. So vaping is addressed in our code of conduct. It is not allowed or permissible in our student code of conduct. There are specific consequences that we can apply to vaping. The level of consequence can sometimes depend on the type of vape it is, what it has in it, whether it doesn't. But a student can be removed for having a vape. They can be suspended. They can be sent to DAP. It is one of our more consistent student code of conduct consequences or infractions that we've applied. Yes, sir. Yeah, we've done a few things. Like we've next year we've almost tripled our points of contact with our assistant principals between their meeting cycles, which will allow us some regular opportunities to talk to them about discipline, attendance, and enforcement. we did a couple of meetings with them. We started this process this spring. I gave them my point of contact too, so you can call me if you have any questions or concerns about things that come up. And after a couple of weeks, they've started to call. They're reaching out. They're asking questions. We're giving them a consistent response. And my response to them is, hey, if you've done your investigation and you have correctly and you've identified a student code of conduct concern and you've applied an allowable student code of conduct consequence, then we are going to support you because we support enforcement of the student code of conduct. IDs, the only reason IDs are up here, we've had the expectation that all of our high school students wear their IDs. That expectation was stated in the handbook, but not in the dress code, so we just added it to the dress code for consistency's sake. And then we've talked a little bit about the cell phones. We're going to enforce the rule as written in the handbook. We don't need to adjust it. It's a well-written rule. The only thing we're going to adjust in the handbook language is we're going to make sure it says cellular devices and not just cell phones. And then we're going to give some very clear guidance to our teachers on, hey, what are you going to do when that happens? If the student's on the phone and they're not supposed to be, we're going to give them a gentle warning. Hey, please put your phone up. It's instructional time. If they do it again, the teacher's going to ask them for the phone. The first time they do that, we're going to tell the teachers, you're just going to hold the phone until the end of the class period, and you're going to return the phone to the student. If the student refuses to follow that order, then we're going to treat that just like any other insubordination under the student code of conduct. They'll put that under referral. They'll send it to the assistant principal. The assistant principal will deal with it. The teacher needs to go on teaching and learning at that point. If the assistant principal has the opportunity to come address it right then, they will. If not, they'll call them down just like any other office referral. The AP will ask the student for the phone. The student will be given the opportunity to surrender the phone. If the office takes the phone, we are going to hold the phone until the end of the school day. That is it. We will never hold the phone beyond the end of the school day because we know those are important tools for parents to track their kids and get in touch with them at the end of the day. We're not charging fines and fees for the phones. We're going to let the parents know every time we've got the phone. The kids will know how to get the phone back. We'll do some communication with our teachers. When they take the phone, they do need to, when the teacher or the office takes the phone, they do need to make an effort to secure it. We are not liable for the phone if something happens to it. The teacher does not have to pay for the phone if it's damaged or if they lose it. The school does not have to pay for the phone if it's damaged or if they lose it. We will make every effort to secure their phone, but we know we will get that complaint from parents and students. We are not going to go through their phone. If we have their phone, that's not our goal. Our goal is simply to protect the instructional time and the integrity of teaching and learning and remove the distraction from the student, and then we'll return the phone to them as soon as the teaching and learning time is done. We posed that question to our campus principals, and yes, ma'am, that's where we landed. They can use their phone in the halls. They can use their phone in lunch. They cannot use it during instructional time. Unless the teacher designates that they have a specific instructional task, then we're going to use our cell phones for this. And at the teacher's direction, they can do that. We got a little specific about that too. Like it has to be a specific instructional task. Like, hey, we're going to do a web search and we're all going to use our phones because they don't have enough Chromebooks. We even specifically talked about, hey, what if they just want to listen to music while they're doing their instructional task? Yeah. Yeah. It can be a powerful instructional tool. It really can be. The other teach piece that we'll do with the kids is to remind them as much as we can that anything they do on their phones during the school day is subject to the student code of conduct. If you're having a conversation with your friend via text or via whatever on your cell phone, it's just like if you were having that conversation next to them in the lunchroom. If you're making threatening comments, if you're picking on somebody, if you're bullying, just because you're doing it digitally doesn't mean it's not subject to the student code of conduct. All right, clubs. So we put together we got a small group of staff together in response to some of the issues that we had with clubs on our campuses. We had campus-based procedures for clubs, for signing up for clubs, for approving club activities, a little bit of variation from campus to campus, and they could use some beefing up and some alignment with policy. So we got a small group of staff together and we looked at club direction from other districts, looked at best examples, got some feedback from our attorneys, and put together a handbook that's aligned with our board policies, FNAB and FNAA. Those are the two policies that clarify curricular and non-curricular student-led groups, as well as dissemination of literature from said groups. So our handbook clarifies the difference between a curricular club and a non-curricular club. A curricular club is like National Honor Society, Student Council. These are school-sponsored clubs. Okay, school-sponsored clubs get a club sponsor. They are afforded more latitude for what they can do in the building and how they can use school resources, but they are school-sponsored. Okay, so everything they do is something that we are endorsing. Non-curricular led student groups are student-led clubs. So FCA is the classic example I throw out there. Usually these are student interest clubs like the chess club, or I want to have an anime club. These are non-curricular led student groups. By policy, these groups are granted what we call a limited open forum during their approved meeting time. So by policy, they can only meet during non-instructional time. So we've clarified in the handbook for principals that our definition of non-instructional time is before the school day and after the school day, and that is it. So for the purposes of club meetings, lunchtime is not considered non-instructional time. Advisory time is not considered non-instructional time. So for those student-led groups, they can meet before school, they can meet after school. The campus has a right of approval for them, but they can't, by statute, because it's an Equal Access Act, I can't approve one club because I like their content and not approve another club because I don't like their content. But I can deny groups if I think that they're going to be disruptive to the educational environment, if they are going to promote violence, if they are going to promote criminal activity. And so the classic example that I use for this is the Satanist Club. Every year we get the Satanist Club and we can deny the Satanist Club because we can say they're promoting violence, they're promoting criminal activity, and so we cannot approve that, right? But if somebody wants to have a FCA and somebody else wants to have a club for Muslim students, we don't have a reason not to deny either one of those clubs, whether we agree with one of them more than the other. We would approve both as long as they follow the correct policies and procedures. Yes. Well, we've beefed up what we've asked for them in our new handbook. So we've beefed up the application a little bit. So they have to give us the purpose of the club in writing. What's the purpose of the club? They have to draft bylaws for the club. And one of the main important things is that tells us, okay, who are your officers? What are their roles? How are you going to handle your elections for officers? Really important information to get from them. We are going to ask the question if they're affiliated with an outside organization on that application, and then we will do some research on the outside organization if they put one on there. If they're not affiliated, then we're going to take them at their word. They're not affiliated with that particular organization. So yeah, that's one of the things we can do. We have about 7 days to respond to their application once we receive it. We're also asking in our new revised process for a minimum number of students. So they've got to come to us with 10 students that are interested in their student-led club. If we feel like they have 10 students, then you've got some interest. Now you can go lead. The primary purpose that we're looking at for student-led clubs is it's a great avenue for student leadership. It really is. It provides them the opportunity to become an elected official over a group of students, lead in a particular area. In that case, it's a great thing that to put on college applications and scholarship applications and things of that nature. And so we're trying to put some guidance in there that helps fulfill that purpose. We're putting in a window for club applications. We're not going to take them all year round like we have been in the past. We'll give them a window at the beginning of the year and a window at the beginning of the second semester to get in your club applications, and then that's it. I've had the experience in the past where I've had, when it becomes college application time, seniors come to me wanting with no other students involved, wanting to approve a club so they can be club president, so they can slap that on their college application. That's not the purpose of this process. So there's an approval process just for getting your club approved and your meeting time approved. And then in your specific meeting time, you're granted a limited open forum. How that works by policy is you have a limited amount of freedom of speech rights. You can talk about the content of your club and your ideas and your opinions in that limited open forum. Let's say you're in the library at 8 a.m. and that is not a school-sponsored activity. The school is not endorsing your opinions or your ideas in that meeting. But once you leave that space, you no longer have that limited open forum. In addition to that, we do have clubs that want to approve other activities. They want to do a fundraiser. They want to do a dress-up day. And so the specific guidance that we give to campuses through the handbook, and we'll do it through training, is that if you're going to approve that activity, you need to do it in such a way that does not extend their limited open forum to the entire campus, because that's not the purpose of that limited open forum. Meaning, for example, the FCA can bake cookies and they can stand outside of the cafeteria and sell cookies, well, within a certain distance from the cafeteria and sell their food of nutritional value in order for their fundraiser to occur, but they cannot proselytize at that point out there in front of the cafeteria at that point. So they have some limitations and some rules. Can they proselytize? Can the SCA proselytize in their limited open forum at their 8 a.m. meeting time? Yes, because they have a limited open forum to do that. Yes.
So let's say I apply for it, and it gets approved, the O'Hare. Everybody, we got parental consent, all of our parents, students, that we're going to have a meeting at breakfast, but before school, outside of the hours. If you don't have parental consent, not a member of the club, want to.
No. So they'll have a staff monitor. The non-curricular student groups will have a staff monitor. And one of the things we've done in the handbook is we've outlined roles and responsibilities. These are the roles and responsibilities of the staff monitor. These are the roles and responsibilities of the club officers. These are the roles and responsibilities of the club members. Every one of those, one of their roles and responsibilities is to have read and been familiar with the club's handbook and all the rules governing clubs. It is the staff monitor's responsibility, one of their responsibilities, to make sure that the students that come to the club meeting have parental permission to attend. That's our check on that. That's one of the other things we're adding is parental participation at 2 different levels. One, when you go to apply for a club, if you're the person that wants to apply for a club, we have a parental permission piece on that. Like, hey, my parent has signed off on that I'm going to go start this club at this campus and fill in my application. And then if you want to attend the club meetings or be a part of the club, there's a parental permission form for that. We did talk to the campus principals about doing some whole campus maybe events. Like every club can come to lunch and have a table at lunch in order to just give some basic information about their clubs, so the student can get basic information about the club and then go home with that parental permission form and say, hey, I want to be a part of this club, kind of a deal. We're doing that club by club too. So we're not giving one generic permission form out for I want to be involved in student clubs. Right now we have it set up for each club you want to be involved in. So the parent permission is for the student to be involved in the club. That's a good question, and we didn't talk about that a lot. We did say, okay, we had some direction for guest speakers, right? The student-led club has to be led by and facilitated by the students, and so even the staff monitor for the student-led club cannot promote or participate in club activities at all. They're just there to monitor the safety of the club and make sure that the rules are being followed and to step in if something kind of goes awry, right? So if the parent were at a club meeting, if we allowed them to attend, they can't really participate in the club meeting. We would consider them a guest speaker at that point, and they would have to go out and fill out a guest speaker form and go through the same background check and pieces like that. That's a good thought, though. I need to take a look at that and say, what if they just want to sit in on a club meeting? Yeah. Yes, ma'am. Good question.
Something like what you described, we couldn't have something like the SK wanted to organize meeting at the pole, have the morning, everybody the flag roll, fine, get together and pray. Seems like the end of these rules, that's an open invitation to everybody. That's not permissible. You couldn't have a, hey, everybody, come and join us.
It's a little bit different. See at the Pole is a little bit different. It's a specific example, right? So it's See at the Pole technically is not always just student led, it's community led. Like it's your students and your community just showing up at a flagpole, could be your flagpole, could be the courthouse flagpole, to pray on a specific day in the morning. Now, a school district could elect, should they want to disallow that behavior and post security outside their flagpoles. No school does. What they basically say is, hey, if you guys want to go do that at our flagpole, we're going to let you guys do that. Right.
Well, your description has nothing to do with the club.
Right.
None of the club.
Right. And it's still not endorsed by the school. Right. Any other questions about clubs or club handbooks? We're going to do a lot of training with this at the beginning of the year with the principals. We're going to do a lot of training with the staff at the beginning of the year. There is a specific sign-off sheet for staff monitors that basically says these are your roles and responsibilities. You understand that you've read these roles and responsibilities and you're agreeing to be a staff monitor. We do know that will probably discourage some staff monitors for signing up to be a staff monitor for some groups that are going to be a little bit more controversial. But at least we want the staff to know what they're in for if they're going to sign up for that. Most of the parents I've talked to are highly supportive of the ideas, and the staff members really too. Make sure I have the mic the appropriate distance from me this time. All right, strategic planning. So here we go. So we engaged in the spring in a refresh of our strategic plan, which is an awesome thing to do. In order to engage in a refresh experience with your strategic plan, you have to have had an initial strategic plan at the beginning, worked through it over a period of time with the team, met with some success with it, and then re-engaged in the process. So not a lot of districts get to do this work, so much so that we had to work with our partner, Region 13, to customize the process a bit just for us, to do it the way we wanted to. When you do a refresh, you build upon your current work. So we kept a lot of the elements, the overarching big vision statement and the mission that the board had come up with the original strategic planning process, the BISD beliefs. We kept those in place. We kept our 4 main pillars of student success, customer service, human capital, and fiscal responsibility in place. We also had just finished doing the BISD portrait of a learner work with that group. And so we put that work in front of the strategic planning refresh team in order to inform the work of that group, right? With our overarching goal of getting all of our arrows to align and find alignment between the work of the different departments for the district and the different stakeholders towards the main vision of the district as a whole. We were able to engage our stakeholders. You guys celebrated the core committee of 60 that worked on the strategic plan at the last board meeting. But know that we also engaged the District Education Improvement Committee, which is about another 60 folks. We have parents and community members on that team in this work, as well as our student advisory team. We took 2 things to them in those 2 groups. We took our 4 pillars of student success, customer service, human capital, and fiscal responsibility, and said, give us feedback on what we're doing well and what you'd like to see us do going forward the next 5 years. We also took the portrait of a learner to those 2 groups and says, take a look at the portrait of a learner work and give us some feedback on what you'd like to see, how you'd like to see this impact our work moving forward. This is our timeline. You can see we did some work from February all the way through currently. We formed our original meeting on the 14th. We did 2 intensive days of action planning work in March. Those were full days with the teams and with our consultants. We did about a half a day of video and communication planning. so we can decide how to communicate the work out to the different departments, out to our core systems, out to our campuses. We spent a day on monitoring and measuring, on talking about what metrics we're going to look at, how are we going to create our scorecard, how are we going to measure the plan. We spent some time collaborating across departments on the layout and the rollout, what's going to happen in year 1, what's going to happen in year 2. We have enough time for our short video. It's a good one.
Bernie is a great place to be. Want a little bit of that hill country magic, as well as the closeness to a metropolitan area.
Such an original place to live.
A little bit off the beaten path, but still has everything you need. And I just don't think you could find a place where you see a greater sense of community.
We've got a lot of staff that's been here for years. They have their kids come to our schools. They live within the community, so the investment is there.
Bernie really focuses on their families and making sure that families are a part of their students' education.
The small town environment allows both staff and students to kind of be themselves and feel comfortable about their surroundings, about coming to school here.
We are really the image of what the community stands for. We take care of their children, we educate their children. Our job is to inspire them to be better people and to go out into the world and do great things.
It's a fast-growing district, and so we're continuing to get more and more people come in, but they're coming for the Bernie experience.
What do we want our schools to look like? Where do we want to grow? And this was the perfect opportunity to bring some people together, have those conversations.
A great way to look at how the district plans for the future.
We looked at what were our successes in the previous plan, what's the work we think we need to do for the future. And so it was a good merging of the previous process and that work with the team this time, looking at how we can build upon that and move forward.
We left our campuses, we left our regular jobs for a number of days to come together just on the strategic plan. That shows the dedication the school district and all the committee members had to seeing this through.
The fact that Bernie's looking to respond to the changes in the world is really empowering. We continue to promote things that are reinvestments into the community here in Bernie.
Always remember that it's not what we want as a district, it's what the community wants. So we serve the vision and we fulfill the vision of the community. Let's go, Bernie! Let's go! One of my favorite things about this whole strategic plan process was getting to work with students. They know what they would like to see.
It is always important for us as the educator to look at the school through their eyes and through their experience. I think when an adult is ready to step aside and let the voice of a student be heard, we have so much to learn.
They're very thoughtful. They care about their community just as much as the parents and the educators. They're a really great group to work with.
Whenever we work with kids about setting goals and then being able to work toward those goals, whenever you can do that as a community, it really makes a difference.
I know the lens of the student within the district and the lens of the teacher, but I was able now to see the lens of all of those higher positions within the district. We all got to talk about our understanding of the big picture that we were dealing with and voice our concerns and put that together for one vision and one goal.
I got to really have a voice for every staff member and how we can grow or make sure that everyone feels fulfilled professionally and that they have goals that they can meet and master.
No one component of the district can survive without the other.
All those voices were heard, and layer upon layer, it just kind of builds a really good picture.
The goals that we were setting up is to go along with our vision statement of engage, inspire, and enrich these kids to be awesome humans that are ready to go out to the workforce.
One of the things that just continues to humble me is the honesty of the conversations.
We're really not small anymore. We're 11,000 students, but if you ask anyone, we still feel that way, and that's because we really care about each other and we take care of each other.
We have such a supportive community. They want what's best for their children. They want to see not only their own children be successful, but they want to see all of the students be successful.
Us being successful with the strategic planning, that would result in just a thriving school district with happy students and teachers, people that feel fulfilled in their jobs.
Just very excited about the strategic plan. I think it provides us a good goal, and it's going to keep all of our different communities and committees and members in our community aligned.
A lot of places talk about success, but if we aren't successful with each and every one of our students, we really haven't met that goal.
We want to continue to both be inspired by our community and to inspire. Give you the opportunity to hear from some of our participants directly. That's a little bit about process. When we talk about product, in your folders we provided, you've got a couple of things in there. You've got our current high-level document for our newest iteration of our strategic plan in nice non-8-point type readable format. I'll date myself here. It's got that kind of cocktail-esque script up there at the top. Old Tom Cruise movie reference. The longer legal paper document that you'll see there that's folded over, that's our old strategic plan. If we wanted you to have that for a point of comparison, you can see when you look at them both, we still have the same 4 overarching areas of student success, customer service, human capital, and fiscal responsibility. We went with what we call aspirational goals on the new document. So like when you see that first goal for CCMR, our goal is to have 100% of our students be college, career, and military ready. We may not get there, but that's our aspiration. And we use our scorecard process to set those incremental benchmarks from year to year as we go and help us make adjustments. You'll notice we have goals, strategies, and action steps. So we've removed a layer. In the previous plan, we had goals, objectives, strategies, and action plans. So this one will feel a little bit more action-oriented. And I'd like to think that when you look at it, you can kind of see the theme of the learner profile embedded into the result, especially when you look at the student success piece. You can see that we're talking about CCMR just like we were before, but now we've got to focus on rigor and relevant instruction. What's the student experience in the classroom for our learner going to look like? We've got an action plan in there associated with MTSS, closing achievement gaps for all of our learners. And we're looking at the high quality instructional materials that our students and our teachers are using. And we've also got a piece in there about advising students for academic courses and making sure that our counseling team is advising them to connect their future with the career path that they have planned. When you look at customer service, you can see we're looking at defining customer service roles for different stakeholders, setting customer service guidelines, creating systems for making families and students feel welcome. Human capital, we're focusing on career pathways, redesigning our mentor program, updating our recruitment and retention program, and developing a marketing plan for the other services offered by the HR department. And then fiscal responsibility, you'll see that we're looking to work on creating and communicating capital replacement standards, identifying a systemic way to identify our needs associated with capital replacement, and continue to do our program evaluation and auditing systems. So this is what I call our overarching document. Know that behind this, for each one of these action plans, is about another 30 pages of spreadsheet work with incremental steps that are outlined by year. This is what we're going to do in 2023. This is what we're going to look to work on in 2024. Those are working documents because we do plan to make adjustments to those as we go through year to year and measure our work based on our scorecard. The last thing I'll highlight for you is our 2023-2024 scorecard. Ooh, it would help if I used the right clicker, wouldn't it? There we go. You've got this in your packet too in case you don't want to squint to try and see it up here. You also have our last year's scorecard too. You can see our goals at the top. You can see the subtle shift in how we're measuring too based on the changes in our goals. Like you'll know, if you look at our 22-23 student scorecard, our measurables were STAR data, meets and masters, which are really good benchmarks. But you'll see a focus in 23-24 on other metrics for college and career readiness, such as enrollment and dual credit, advanced placement and success on those assessments, completing CTE programs of study and credentials, and things of that nature. So what are we going to do with this work? So this is our 5-year strategic plan. It's going to drive our work moving forward. We've worked with the campus. We've involved all the campus principals in this project so that when they drafted out their CIPs for 23-24, which they've done already, they can be informed by this work. When we draft out the district improvement plan for next year, it's going to be informed by this work. This document and our portrait of a learner and our portrait of a leader, when we put that out, are going to be the backdrops with which we measure and help us plan for every step that we take going forward in the future. Took me a month or two to catch on to that too. The strategic planning process is more familiar. Like I've done 3 strategic planning processes, right? The commitment to having a scorecard that's revisited annually to hold yourself accountable for the strategic plan is much more rare, in my experience.
All right, well, good afternoon. I prepared some materials for you. They are in the red folder, and I'll be calling them out as we go through them. But there are two major changes this last year at the state level, one to our accountability system and the other to our assessment. So I'll be talking about that, and then I will be sharing with you the results of the STAR exam scores that we have received so far. Okay. So I'll begin with the A through F refresh. That is our state and federal accountability system for 2023. And so why do we have an A through F system? This was began in 2018, and according to state law, the purpose is one, to improve student performance, to eliminate achievement gaps, and of course to prepare our students for post-secondary success. The statute does require that the metrics change every 5 years, and it's been 5 years. So I'll be reviewing those changes with you. And just as a refresher, there are 3 domains to our A through F system. Domain 1 has to do with student achievement. Domain 2, school progress. And the better of those 2, whichever a campus or a district scores better in, will count for 70%. And then the last 30% is our Domain 3, which is also our federal accountability. That is what gets reported to the U.S. Department of Ed. It's closing the gaps, and that's where they look at every single sub-pop that I think it's 14 different sub-populations that are evaluated in Domain 3. In your folder, I included a little note-taking sheet for you so that you can keep along and take your own notes. I'll be going through each domain and discussing the different changes to each one. And so please stop me if you have any questions regarding any of that. So we're going to start with Domain 1, student achievement, and that one really has to do with our STAR assessment. And so there are 4 different performance levels: did not meets, approaches, meets, and masters. And that is for subjects, grades 3 through 8, and end of course for the 4 major subject areas. And so I included the raw conversion score sheet for you, just so that you can see what the difference is between what an approaches means, what a meets grade level means, and what masters. So for example, in reading language arts, grade 3, there's 34 questions. In order to get to the approaches level, you have to score at least 17 correct. That's the raw score, which means 50%. To be at a master's, you have to score 25 raw score, which is about 74%, and to be at master's, 29 correct, which is 85%. So I just wanted to show and illustrate the difference between the 3 different performance levels. So how STAR performance is calculated for each campus and for the district, they'll take the total approaches grade levels for all the subjects, plus the total percentage of meets, and the total percentage of masters. They take all those numbers and divide by 3. So for example, if this was a campus or a district and they had 2,900 students at approaches, that's the percentage, meets, and masters. Those are the numbers there. How it would be calculated is that 92 would round to a 93. Then you add the 61, because that meets would round to a 61. And then the masters percentage, add that, equals 181. You divide by 3, and you get a 60. Now that 60 is not, that's the component score. What happens is that then gets scaled. So anything above a 60 is considered an A, just based off of the calculation. Okay, so I just wanted to show that to you real quick as a refresher. So also in Domain 1, so on your notes, you can go ahead and say, or write down a change in calculation and change in grading. There is no change in calculation or change in grading for STAR performance this year. So there are no changes there. But when it comes to CCMR, I did want to talk about the importance of it. CCMR is all throughout the accountability system. 40% of it under student achievement, 50% for school progress, and 30% in closing the gap. So CCMR is in every single piece of our accountability system. And again, just as a reminder, the college aspects are, to be college ready is our TSIA 2 test for ELA and math, dual credit courses, on-ramps, advanced placement courses, and of course earning an associate degree, which we do not have any yet, but we will through our P-TECH program. Our career ready components would be IBCs, which are our industry-based certifications, which are awarded through trade associations, for example, welding, OSHA, etc. Those are our IBCs that we offer here in the district. Level 1 or 2 certificates, which we do not offer yet, but we will with our P-TECH program. And of course, IEP workforce advanced degrees, those are for our students that are service under special education. And then of course we have military ready. So starting with the class of 2023, we will now be able to document and record this to the state with a Department of Defense form that needs to be filled out for those that will be enlisting right after graduation. And that will also include the Texas National Guard. So the proposed changes this next year are significant for CCMR. So back in 2018, when CCMR began to be calculated, the baseline across the state for high schools of graduating seniors that were CCMR was 47%. That was the baseline. So at that time, the state set the cut point to be a 60. You had to have scored a 60 or higher in order to earn the A. Well, 5 years later, they've taken the average, and now the average is 65%. So because of that, the commissioner has decided to up the cut point from 60 to 88. So that is the reason behind his adjustment. But there's a lot of flaws to that, in my opinion, because one, you're making the change on a graduating class that is already gone. And there is always a phase-in plan, usually with these major changes. This does not include that. So I wanted just to share that information with you. So that's CCMR. Yes, sir. So yes, it is. It's the raw score. Yes. So for example, last year for our BISD, our score was a 71. So since it was above a 60, that equated to an A for CCMR. Graduated CCMR from both high schools, yes. Correct. But CCMR lags a year. So this is going to be based on the class of 22. I'm going to show you here in a little bit. A group, yes. There's also some changes to our graduation rate and proposed cut points there. They're slightly more rigorous. So they're going from a 96% rate to a 98. So I'll go ahead, I will show you in a few slides where we stand as of last year for last year's class. So if you're keeping notes, for star performance, there was no changes. For CCMR, in calculation, there was a minor change. I really didn't talk about it because it's not really that significant. But the grading scaling is humongous. It is a huge, huge change. So I want to make sure you noted that. And then, of course, for graduation, no change in calculation and how it's calculated, but a slight change. It's a little bit more rigorous in how it's scaled. When it comes to Domain 2, school progress, this only looks at the subjects of reading and math, and it looks at our students' progress from year to year. So for example, a student that took a grade 4 math test, and then how did they do in grade 5 on math? They are moving to what's called a transition table, which will account for more students, basically. And so this is a little bit of a change, and I'm thinking hopefully it will help us along the way. The other thing that's changing is that they're adding a component, the 45-45 performance. So they'll be looking at specifically at our students that did not pass STAR last year, and if they passed STAR this year. So it's not only about looking at the growth, but it's also looking at to see if we get those students to pass. So this will be considered a bonus. So if we got a lot of students that failed last year to pass this year the test, then that will be added to our academic growth, which is good. So it will only help us, not hurt us. So that's a significant change there. So as far as academic growth, there is a new calculation, and then of course the scaling for that, and then for relative performance. Now, relative performance part B, that is our student achievement relative to our economically disadvantaged students. And again, there's a slight change in that only because of CCMR. So again, the state will take the best of domain 1 or domain 2. Historically, Bernie ISD, we rely on our domain 1. That is always, and for all our campuses and our district, domain 1 is usually our highest performing rating. Domain 3, closing the gaps. Again, this is our federal accountability. There's many, many changes to domain 3 and how it's going to be calculated. Go ahead and we'll talk about that. There is a change to our TELPAS exam. So TELPAS is the exam that we give to our emerging bilingual students. And there are certain aspects, there's 4 domains to that test: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. The calculation for that exam has changed. It used to be 36%. They've upped the percentage of progress that needs to be made. So at elementaries, it's 49, middle school, it's 44, and high schools, it's 34. So that's significant because that means that our emerging bilingual students have to show progress from year to year. And again, they upped the percentage required. Another major change is that they are reducing the student group size from 25 tests down to 10. So there are some, so I always use Fair Oaks as an example. Fair Oaks had a very small emerging bilingual population, but they maybe had 10 students that took the TELPAS test. So this year, that would count for them, when in years past, it wouldn't because they had under 25. So you got to think about all our other subpopulations, our Asian, 2 or more races, American Indian, where maybe we don't have 25, but we definitely have at least 10. Those subgroups will now count in the overall score. For some campuses it does, and for some it doesn't. I'll show you the preliminaries. For each campus type, the performance targets are different. So for elementary, it's different than middle, and for high school. In years previous, it was all the same performance target, but now it's different by level. Elementary is more rigorous than the other 2. $36. Yes, it is. They have to. Okay. So TELPAS looks at progress. So if they tested last year, whether it was with us or any other Texas school, and now they're with us as fall snapshot, and they tested with us, they're going to look to see if they went from one level to the next. And it's actually tests. So you got to think about tests. So think about an 8th grader takes 4 tests. One 8th grader takes 4 tests. So if you have 5 Asian students that are 8th graders, well, that's 20 tests. So that would count when it's really only just 5 students. So it goes by both. So for example, Fair Oaks last year didn't have enough emerging bilingual students to count for the campus, but their 10 that they did test counted for the district because it's all part of they're all part of the district. I guess it depends on the subpop, but it all counts for the district regardless. Okay. The next change is that we're going from a yes/no methodology to gradated outcomes, which basically what that means is that you either met the target or you didn't last year. Now they'll be looking at, are you making progress toward the target, and you'll get points for that. So that's a good thing. The next big change to Domain 3 is what they're calling it is a super group. So many times you have a student that is special education, but is also emerging bilingual, and maybe is also categorized as a migrant student. So that's 3 different sub-pops, and so that child would count in 3 different measures. What they're trying to do here is combine that so that into one super group, which would include all of them unduplicated. So they wouldn't count for 70 different measures, maybe they would just count for 10 or 15. So the 4 major groups are going to be the all-student group, our 2 lowest race and ethnicity groups from the prior year, and that varies from campus to campus. The majority of our campuses' 2 lowest racial and ethnic groups are Hispanic and white. Except for South, there's this Hispanic and African American. And then HERF is Hispanic and 2 or more races. So they'll take those 2 sub-pops, and that will go into their accountability based off of last year's percentages. And then I've also that super group, or that high focus group, which is all of your EcoDis, your SPED, your emerging bilingual, homeless, migrant, and foster students will all be grouped into one, unduplicated, which should help. Correct. So instead of counting 4 or 5 times, that student would only count once. So it could either help or it could hurt. So it just depends. So I discussed that, changing the minimum size, and of course our 2 lowest performing all student in our high focus group. So the other major change is the calculation of ratings. So in your folder, I did include for you it's a yellow sheet. So what the state will be going to now is proportional weighting for the district final rating. What they're going to be doing is taking all of the students in grades 3 through 12, because those are the students that test, enrolled at the campus, and then divide that by all the students evaluated. So for example, Bernie High School, their enrollment is 1,280. So whatever their rating is would count for 16.2% of the district rating. So the larger the campus, the more weight they have towards the district rating. The smaller the campus, the smaller the percentage. So I included for you what each campus would be weighted at. So that is a big change from the year before as well. So those are all the changes to either calculation or scaling for each of the domains. And again, the biggest change, one is CCMR, and also in domain 3, substantially reconfigured and recalculated. So those are the 2 biggies. Okay. So last week, TEA did release what they're calling the what if reports. These are a look backwards. What they did was they took the new 2023 methodology and used 22 data, because obviously we have not received all of our 23 data. So they took last year's data with the new tools and new methodology. Okay. So also in your folder, I included for you what the district rating would be based off of last year's data with this year's changes to the system. So as you can see, the big change was in domain 1, and the big change reason is because of CCMR, the recalculation and the refiguring of that, which then translates to from a 94 to an 89. I've also included for you, not just the district, but for each campus. And I did share this with principals earlier this week. I gave them their individual reports. And there were some that had minor changes, and some that didn't change at all, and some had significant changes. So for our elementaries, they're relatively the same. Only one would go from a A to a B, which would have been HERF. But the rest stayed the same or stayed within the same letter grade. In our secondaries, our middle schools relatively stayed the same. It's the high schools that had a huge dip. And again, because of CCMR. Okay. Yes, sir. Correct. So that would equate to a C for CCMR, but then you add the star. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Hold on, I'm getting there. So they also included the statewide what if reports, just the percentage of all 8,000 some campuses across the state. What were the differences? So 66% ratings stayed the same. Now, that could have been a campus went from a 95 to a 92, but they're still an A, so they stayed in that column. There were some campuses that went from an A to a B or a B to a C, and so that would have been 28% of them, and 6% of them, the ratings increased. Anyway, this is the statewide what if reporting. So that was the accountability system. There were also significant changes to our assessment, which is STAR, and we're calling it STAR 2.0, like the other version. And I just wanted to share with you really quick, there were the significant changes to the STAR this year. One, it's no longer a timed test. It was administered 100% online across the state. Bernie, we've been testing online for the last 3 years, so it wasn't that big of a change for us. No more than 75% of the questions could be multiple choice. The rest had to be other types of questions. So for example, drag and drop, inline text, multi-select, short or extended constructed responses. So that had to make up the other 25%. So it's a significantly different test than our students have been exposed to before. A writing component was added to reading. Usually they were two separate tests, now they're combined into one. And then the incorporation of cross-curricular passages in reading. So on the reading test, there were passages that related to science and social studies, etc. So that was a significant change. So what does the equating of STAR 1.0 and STAR 2.0 look like in terms of the cut point? So because it's a different test, it is a more rigorous exam. The state did have to make some adjustments to the different levels of performance, right? In order to have them equate. So the effort that you made last year to make meets and the effort you made on STAR 2.0 to make meets, they needed to equate that because it should have been the same level of learning. So there was an adjustment made to the raw score conversion. This is the only information we have right now because only end of course exams have been released. So for example, last year on English 1, in order to get approaches, you had to get 56% correct. Now it's 42% because again, it's a much more rigorous exam. So they did drop those percentages. And you can see across all those subject areas that that's what occurred. From algebra, from a 39% to a 34%. Biology 38 to 26, and for U.S. history from 41 to 28. So again, it was a more rigorous exam, so the performance, the raw score conversions had to be adjusted. So what we know right now, this is our preliminary STAR results for grades 3 through 8. No standards have been set yet. So all we have are percentages of students that likely did not pass, the famous zone of uncertainty. Maybe they passed, maybe they didn't, we don't know. Or students that likely pass. I was very pleased to see these results because if you look at the likely pass, those are pretty high percentages. So I was very happy with those. We do not receive those scores until August. But we do have our end of course results, which I've also included for you in your folder. You have a pink sheet. Now, this is our end of course results that we received last week compared with Region 20 and the state for each of the subjects. As you can see, we scored well above the region and the state in every subject area and every performance level. This is really, really great. So consider this a much more rigorous exam, new item types, and our kids did well. I think it's where you set your goals at. And we always set ours at meets and masters. Approaches should be a given. But I do know a lot of districts that is where they just want kids to pass. And we want our kids to do better than that. So I broke down the data even further. So I pulled out the algebra just for our middle school. So remember, these are our 8th graders taking algebra. These are our more advanced students. So, and I did a comparison between the 22 and 23. So it goes, when you get to the meets and the masters, each campus improved. And it's extremely difficult when you're already at 79, 96% to increase. But our campuses have been able to pull that out. So that was very, very good. When it came to algebra at the high school, those are our percentages there. We had increases in approaches, meets, and masters with a small decrease at Bernie High School. That had to do with, I believe, a teacher that was out quite a bit. But they're already making plans to make that adjustment. But that's at the master's level, and I think that's still pretty good. Compared to Champion, they're almost the same. English 1 and English 2 increases in all 3 performance levels, which is significant from the year before. And then for biology and U.S. history, the same. Except for Bernie High School for biology, but that is being addressed as well. So these are very, very good results. So I wanted to share with you what we know right now as far as CCMR. So we received a data file from TEA. It's called the CCMR verifier. Basically, here's your last chance to make any corrections, Bernie ISD. So we're combing through it because it's due next week. Right now, our percentage is 86. So we're going from a 71 to an 86. Unfortunately. Unfortunately. That is the breakdown between each high school, Bernie High and Champion. Right now, I have my team combing through student by student to find me 2% more because the cut point is 88. Well, I know they've been working on it, but right now they're like, I think it's going to be an 86. What's also good is our industry-based certifications. I included that chart for you. Now, these are not our seniors. These are students grades 9 through 12 who earned an industry-based certification this year through CTE. So for total for the district was 423. Now, these are the certifications that fall under the A through F accountability. There's so many other certificates that we offer that don't count for accountability, but for the accountability purposes, we had 423, which is a 17% increase from last year, which is excellent. Our teachers are really working on this. Correct. That's for the class of 22, correct. Oh, not till next year. Yes, remember, CCMR lags a year.
think it does help for double the number of things for us going forward. That maintenance know if that portion day starts just being threshold. Well, they say that on the first day.
Also released this last week was graduation. So these are our graduation rates for the class. So let me explain real quick. State graduation rate, they look at the last 3 years and which ones were the best, either the class of 22, 21, or 20. So based off of that, the best out of the 3 years for Bernie ISD, our rate was a 99.3. For Bernie High School, it was their class of 2020, where they had 100% of their students graduate. And for Champion, it was their class of 21, which they had 99.3%. Okay, so that's for state accountability. The federal accountability is a little bit different because they add more students. They don't have as many students excluded from the denominator. So for Bernie ISD, it's a 98.8. Bernie High was 99.1, and Champion was 98.6. And that is for the class of 22. So for state accountability, that number will go into our domain 1. Mm-hmm. Probably a little bit of both. I mean, it comes from our PMs and what we enter into the system. I can share the full report with you if it has all of our sub-pops listed as well. This is just the overall for the all-student group. That's true. Very true. So again, our final assessment reports for grades 3 through 8, we're still waiting on those. They'll be released the first day of school on August 11th. So we will not get our final accountability results until September 26th, but I should be able to calculate a preliminary as soon as I receive those results in August. Any questions? Okay, this is all I have. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So today I'm going to be talking about some technology planning that we're initiating. Districts have a technology plan that's usually guided by state and guidance. So the goal of the technology plan is really to be intentional about the initiatives that you're rolling out throughout the year and to ensure that those are in alignment with the strategic plan. So this is perfect timing falling in alignment with the district's strategic plan completion. Now, rolling out the technology planning process works perfectly in conjunction. So really we want to establish that vision for technology and the roadmap, as well as making this an iterative process to where we're monitoring and updating the technology plan throughout the years as technology changes. So TEA has established long-range plans for technologies over the years. Starting in 2006, they released a 14-year plan. And then 2018, they released an updated plan for that period you see, followed by the 22 plan, which revised and extended that prior plan to take into account some of the things they learned from the COVID pandemic and such. And so Bernie ISD has in the past had several plans. 2011, there was a technology plan, and 2016. And both of those were established during the time frame of the 2006 TEA long-range plan for technology. So it's kind of has the same linkage there. So we want to update the technology plan to be more in alignment with the current TEA plans. So the original 2006 TEA plan had 4 categories: teaching and learning, educator prep, leadership administration, as well as infrastructure. And so the new plan that came out in 2018, and again revised in 2022, has 6 categories. You can see them listed there: personalized, flexible, empowered learning, equitable access, digital citizenship, safety and security, and collaborative leadership, as well as reliable infrastructure. So it's a more broad coverage of technology in this modern age. So those revisions that came from 2018 to 2022 included things learned from the pandemic and more modern technology needs, such as the virtual learning and extending the learning into outside the classroom, as well as reconsidering the device refresh cycles now with the prevalence of mobile technology in classrooms and those having higher breakage rates than physical devices and things like that, as well as the higher propensity of cybersecurity incidents with K-12 institutions. And they really want this to be interactive and trying to support individual needs, so they've revised that plan to try to accommodate for that. So this plan from TEA is really just a visionary guide with tools to establish that engagement process, to take into account statewide technology trends. You can see here the long-range plan for technology modules. Within there, you can see the 6 goals, and each of those goals have different focus areas to try to hone in on those individual needs. For example, this student-centered and adaptive. Within each goal, there's those focus areas, but TEA's created development guidelines. So, for example, this one falls into the first goal. And you can see here the strategic goal 1 has this development guide. So the committees that are established to help develop this plan can use the information presented, such as action ideas and outcomes, short-term and longer-term outcomes, as well as guiding questions to help develop the plan. So as the technology planning committees meet, they can help develop the content within each of these, develop action plans. So the first goal really focuses on the personalized, flexible learning environment. The second one focuses on that equitable access, not just one-to-one programs, but also connectivity and usability, which would include that training component for teachers and students to make sure that they can use the devices and the software. The goal 3 focuses in on that digital citizenship component to make sure that we have a robust program with relevant content, and we're training our students and staff on those rights and responsibilities they have that comes with using technology. Goal 4 focuses on campus safety, security, as well as cybersecurity and data management and governance. Because districts host and hold and maintain an abundance amount of data, it's important to have a strong data governance management program for that. Goal 5 focuses on that collaborative leadership, which talks about strategic planning, shared services, where you can find work with like region service centers and things like that to reduce costs on services and solutions, as well as state collaboration. And then goal 6 really focuses on the infrastructure to make sure that the infrastructure is updated, modernized, and not just the data center, but also the devices in the classroom, to make sure those have a sustainability plan and those are being replaced on a regular basis. And then the continuity of operations. We want to make sure that we have established disaster recovery and processes in place to make sure that we're operating in the event of a disaster or other situation. So the TEA has provided these tools, not just the long-range plan, but also templates and workbooks, et cetera, that could help the committees develop this long-range plan. And in addition, they're working collaboratively with the school districts and visiting with school districts to kick off this process. So part of that process is to start the conversation on the planning process and really jumpstart or refresh the refreshing process of the plan. And they're willing to come down and start with focusing on 2 to 3 of the categories. So we've selected those 3 highlighted in red to really help kick off this process. And just a note that the plan really should support the district's existing plans, tie into the strategic plan, focus on those campus improvement plans, and really establish that sustainability plan. So identifying the fiscal needs and financial challenges that would be present in future years as we're trying to replace that aging equipment over time. The action planning is really just trying to make sure that we're having that collaboration. So part of that process is we've established a District Technology Advisory Council. We're going to be identifying individuals to serve on that council and ensuring that we're grouping together stakeholders that would have important information to share, experiences to share, and helping to develop that plan. During that planning process, the committee will be looking at different data to help evaluating current programs and processes and systems to determine if any of those need to be revised. So part of that data would be surveys to various groups, looking at the strategic plans, looking at software and hardware inventory, as well as looking at those condition reports that we have on our systems, and looking at standards and best practices. So the timeline for this is already kicked off. We've held a launch party consultation with TEA, and in August we're going to finalize the advisory council, and then September we'll have that kickoff meeting with TEA, followed by the fall. During that fall semester, we're going to be holding committee meetings to help establish that long-term plan for technology. And then annually, I want to make sure that we're having our District Technology Advisory Council meet regularly for updates. You know, technology changes on a regular basis, more frequently than a lot of us would like, but it does change regularly, and we want to have progress monitoring to make sure that we are making progress on that plan. So that's all I have. Are there any questions? Okay.
Okay, at 2:48, following the conclusion of our board workshop, we're now going to go back into closed session for discussion of personnel, section 551.071, 74, and 82, superintendent goals, evaluation, contracts, related actions, and agreements. And we'll return back into open session to take any action as necessary. Okay, it is 3:07, and we're going to come out of closed session back into open session on June the 14th. Do I have any motions for actions to be taken based on closed session discussions?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion. I move that the board approve the retirement agreement with Dr. Price and authorize Mr. Carlin Fryer to finalize and approve the agreement on behalf of the district as we have discussed in closed meeting.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed?